So you'll have seen in the time lapse, I have put these in with really solid nylon wall fixings. These ones by rule plug. Some of these, and then for the smaller holes at the bottom, I've used really long screws and some nice thick rule plugs as well. So that's really, really solid now, which is good. It's also level. Oops. There you go, can you see that? There's a shadow in the way. It's also level. So that's good. This way. Level. Right, so I have attached that to the wall. I've kept my cables out of the way nice and neat and tidy. And what I'm doing is I'm just getting this box ready here for these. I'm going to be splitting these out. There, I've got 2 of these boxes. One of them is going to have 4 in, the other is going to have 3 in. For this box, this is going to be the one above that has 4 of these in. What I've got is these 20mm stuffing glands, and these are really good for holding cables in, but they can't hold too many. So I'm going to be holding 2 in each of them. So there'll be 4 cables going out, 2 here, 2 here. And this third hole at the bottom is where the actual feed is going to come in from the consumer unit. So I'll have the feed coming in. There will be the switches that get wired in. And then out of those switches, out of each of them, will go a cable. Hence the 4 cables, 2 and 2. Right, nice and sturdy, really secure on there, of course. Glands at the top, one at the bottom, and that will come nice and easily from here into there. Got to do the same at the bottom after lunch. Right, just up in the loft again. I'm here working with my boy, Spider-Man, and we are feeding the cable down. We've drilled a hole and we are now feeding it down. The reason I'm doing this is going to be like the main feed, the electrical feed that goes all the way down to the consumer unit, but I want to have a light switch up in here as well. So I'm basically running the power up to this point. I'll be able to have something, I'll have a light up on here, and I'll have the switch just down here on the wall. And so we are effectively going to be running this power cable the whole way down. The other thing that we're going to do is run some cable down on this side as well, either across the floor or probably more likely across and down this way, so that we can get power to the outside of the house as well. I need to think through exactly where I want it, but I want lights on the outside of the property as well, so we're going to make sure we've got a decent amount of feed there. So we're literally just unspooling this now and pushing it down all the way. Right, I'm just running the lighting feed for the external wall lights, so they're going to sit on the outside of the house. I'm using my laser level. We want 3. We want 1 outside the utility room door, we want 1 at the front near where the garage is, and then we're going to have 1 on the side of the house on the outside there, so that as you walk down the path, they're all going to have PIRs attached to them. As you walk down, they'll switch on in sequence as you come down. So I've got this, my laser level, using a magnet attached to this. That's the height that I want it. And because it's got this here, it can pivot without actually changing the level at all. The level stays the same, but I can pivot this round, and that means over on this side I can see a bit more of the laser without it changing the height. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing. That's what I'll be doing now to get this drilled. I'm going to drill from the inside out, and then I can run the cable. I'm going to run it off the main feed here, so it's all part of this. This is the continuous feed for the Veluxes, for these 4 Veluxes here. So I'll be running it off this, across, and then down where it needs to go. So I have now run all of the cables, all of the feed cables. So if it's a feed cable or a ring cable, I've got it looped over here, unless it's one of the old cables, the existing cables. Any of my feed cables and ring cables are over there. So now I've got my switch cables here, 4 of them, and I've got some switch cables here, 3 of them. So what I'll do is I'll get them, doesn't really matter which 2, and I'm just going to shove them down in here into that one. These two I will take like this, and I'll shove these two down into here like this, and I'll pull those in, neaten them up, and then I can start dressing them into the actual switch receiver, which I can then secure in those boxes, and then I will just run the supply into one of the switch boxes, and the supply will run from here into the consumer unit. So that's what this looks like. That's what that looks like. Nice and tight there on the whisker box, on the whisker gland, sorry. That's not coming off. This one is going to have a feed, so the supply feed will come in. It'll daisy chain around all of them, and they'll all be connected into their respective cables that feed. So this is the one for the decking lights, for instance. This one is for the LEDs on the kitchen. So each of these will be controllable by a switch somewhere that will need to be paired with them. So the mains power comes in from the consumer unit, it will loop down, it will go in through this gland into each of the boxes, and then out from each box via each cable. 4 receivers in this box, and there will be 3 receivers in this box. I did a full time-lapse video doing the wire up of this, only to realise that the time-lapse had failed and I had accidentally switched it off just after starting it, so that was a complete fail. Anyway, I'm going to show you now. I've got a second one to do up here, so I'll be showing you now what it is that I'm going to be doing. I've got a little label printer, so I print out labels for all of these, so I'll show you a bit about that as well. Final thing I'll say on this Dymo label printer, this way, although you know I've written it on that, it's a little bit easier and clearer to read there. Always print 2 of every tag, because then you can stick the same on the back of the switch that you pair. So I've done that. I've pre-printed them. I've got them ready to go there, a little pile of them, and I'll keep them safe so that when this does have power, you press and hold this for 3 seconds, and the light will go red. You click the switch, and then that's it. They're paired, and then you can stick the same tag on the back, and that way you know exactly which one's paired with which. Just makes life a little easier. Right, so what I'll do is I will dress this one in now, basically the same as I've done on that, and hopefully the time lapse will actually capture it this time. Hopefully you find this useful. This is my first time wiring up these receivers that I've got, actually. These things. It's my first time. So I've made a few mistakes on this box, which I will hopefully learn from on the second one, and I will show you what I've done and how I made the mistakes and what I'm doing to fix it this time. So I'm going to stick you on time lapse now. Hopefully you will be able to see it. It's a little bit dark in here. There's quite a lot going on with all these cables, but hopefully you will be able to see it nice and clearly now. Hopefully you were able to see that nice and clearly and found that useful. The reason that I've done these daisy chains so short, where I'm running the feed out of this one and into this one, is because there's not a vast amount of space in those boxes there. And I've left the protective sheathing on as well, because I wasn't sure exactly how much I'd need, how far to trim it back. What I'm going to do now is dress these in by taking the slack out and sending it back out that way, and then I can take the slack up there, and these will dress in nicely. You'll see that I have left all of these earths very, very long. That's because I'm going to put them on a 5-way Wago, so that when the main feed comes in, it's nice and easy for me to connect these all up. These don't actually need an earth to operate, but for my CPC I want to have that there, just because it seems like good practice to me. So I have left these long. The mistake that I made on this first one is that I cut all of my tails to the same length. All of you know, my earth, my neutral and my live were all the same length, which meant that all of these were very short, because you only need a small amount of space there, and it just made it a bit difficult for me, frankly. The other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to print out a label for each of these and stick a label on it, so I know exactly what it is, nice and easy to see from the front. or from the top, and then I'll dress them all back in. And yes, I am doing this in my lounging trousers because it's 7 o'clock at night and I'm freezing cold. I'm wearing slippers as well because it is absolutely brutal. It's the 2nd of January and it's really cold. Right, so that is the finished article, near enough. All I need now is the live feed to come in. That'll come into this bottom one here, which is why it's left blank. And then I can connect up all the CPCs together as well. So yeah, that's that portion done. All the switches are now wired for the whole of the, near enough all of the downstairs. A few more that I'm going to be putting in location, just to kind of reduce the number of boxes that I've got here. But yeah, that is that portion done. Next, we're going to move on to wiring in this properly, which will be, I'm really looking forward to it actually. I'm looking forward to working with the guy and having a go and seeing what I do, and hopefully you find it useful. It's the next day, and what I'm going to do now is just quickly work out where I want these all to come in, and I'm going to knock out the knockouts, put some stuffing glands on them, and I haven't got any of these big kind of 40mm stuffing glands that I need, so I'm going to need to get a couple of those, but it's not the end of the world. I can pick some of those up. I'm not sponsored by these guys, not affiliated with them, but I use a company called TLC Direct. I have found them to be the fastest, best service and cheapest actually, so very impressed by them. So all of this stuff has come from TLC Direct. It was recommended to me by an electrician friend of mine actually, so I figured it couldn't be too bad. Anyway, I'm going to start getting these knocked out once I've kind of just laid out roughly where I want them, and then I'll start running them into the board. Right, so to pop these out, literally all I do is get a nice big flathead screwdriver, place it directly under the middle of where I want the hole, and then one firm tap, and then I just wriggle these back and forth a little bit and give them a twist, and they pop out nice and easily. With the stuffing gland, you get the gland itself, you get the ring. I don't know if there is a top or a bottom to these things. That's got the writing on it of what size it is, so I normally leave that out. I don't know why, I just tend to. You put the ring on the inside. Let me turn it this way so you can see with my hand not blocking it. Do that like that, and then I normally get them finger tight because they're quite firm, nothing's going to be unscrewing them. You don't want to be dogging them up tight, and then it's only nylon thread or plastic, whatever it's made of, so you don't want to be, you know, you can get spanners, but I don't think that would be a right way to go, so I don't do that. And then this is a 6mm cable. You can basically fit one 6mm cable inside, like you're never going to get a second one up in there. Make sure that the gland section is undone so that you can feed this up and through. Push it up like this. See, that does happen sometimes. That has pulled the rubber out of there, so I'm gonna have to reset that. But you can see how tight it is just with one of these. So I'm going to take this out, put this rubber gland back in, and go again. So these, move this over here so you can see it a bit easier without casting shadow. So these rubber collars here actually come from this bit which expands. This expanding bit is basically like what you get on a hose lock, where you put it in and then the compression tightens it up and holds it in place. So you can just gently expand these out a little bit and then fold the collar and put it back in. It is fiddly. I mean, it is obviously better if these don't pop out, but if they do, then you can slot them back in like that, and it's exactly the same as that one there. Effectively, it's just not as compressed. You see the rubber ring in the middle there. That's the theory anyway. And then when you put this back on, it'll obviously tighten up. So because this is being a little bit tricky, what I think I'm going to do in this instance is take the cable, slide the cap over, I'll feed this through before I slot the whole thing in, and then I'll slide it up like this, being very careful not to damage any of the sleeving, obviously. And now that I'm in, it's going to be much easier. I think I can dress that in, and then I just slide this over the top like that. Tighten this one on just so I don't have to hold it. Right, and that's it. Like I say, you can use this just to kind of give it a last little bit of tightness, just like that, but you know, you really don't want to do it much more than just a less than a quarter of a turn even, just to help keep that in. And that is now nice and snug. I think I might just do just a hair's more. Just like that. That's now nice and snug. That one's nice and snug. And those cables are held in tightly. Right, so I'll do the same for the rest of the board. That took a little bit of time. A, it's my first time doing it, and B, I wanted to spend a little bit of time thinking about things. I've deliberately left this plug socket out. This is the boiler. We are going to be wiring the boiler now, basically. The plumber's just arrived. So I'm going to actually be cheekily sticking this into an existing socket, if I can get some space for it, so that we've got power. And then once we're decommissioning this and we're recommissioning that, I can just slot it in, and that's absolutely fine. But I put a ring on this one here, got the two individual ones for the oven and the induction hob. I've got 3 lights in one, so you can fit 3 1.5 mils in these 20 mil stuffing glands. And then I've got a ring in this one here, and then I need to get a couple more stuffing glands for the ring, this ring down here, which is the downstairs ring that'll come up the bottom, and also the upstairs radial and the downstairs radial and the upstairs ring. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I also need a big stuffing gland for this one, which will go in here. Right, that is kind of the end of that. Hopefully you found that useful and helpful. Like I said, it's not a tutorial. I'm not an electrician. I'm going to be doing this in conjunction with a qualified electrician. I'm just doing things that I have learnt over the years and things that I've picked up. So yeah, don't copy me and get it wrong and then blame me. Make sure you get this done by a competent registered individual.